I want to talk about how to make sure you don't get bored of your food. Okay, how do we make sure that we don't get bored of our food? I think this is a super common topic. It is a question that I probably get asked. I'd probably say one of the most, probably top 3 reasons why you would fall off. One of them would be I'm bored with my food or something food related. So this is a hot topic and I'm going to break it down today. Now, this is a big problem because generally the pattern that we always repeat is if we are sick of our food or we find it unappealing or we're bored or, fill in the blank, what we end up doing is we become hypersensitive to the other unboring, quote unquote, foods that we're exposed to. And if we view us as boring and then we get exposed to not boring, we're like hypnotized by the not boring. And then we make bad decisions, we make emotional decisions, and we usually overindulge, we feel guilty, we feel regretful, we punish ourselves, either mentally we beat ourselves up or physically we make ourselves starve the next day or get an extra workout in. It's just not a good cycle, and I guarantee we've all done that and repeated that cycle in some way, shape, or form. So let's see if we can start to curb that or at least rewire it. So first thing we need to know, when it comes to weight loss and it comes to food, okay, there is a spectrum of food and we'll call it and prepping, food and prepping. There's a spectrum, okay? Now, on one end of the spectrum, it is easy food. It's how we make food easy, okay? So this is when food is very simple. And simple means sustainable, right? If something is simple, you can continue to do it long term. So that's on one side of the spectrum. Now, unfortunately, simple also usually means boring. Simple's not usually very exciting, right? So that's on one side of the spectrum. It's simple, but it's boring. Now, on the complete other side of this spectrum, when it comes to weight loss and food, you have the complex side. So this complex side is where it's exciting, it's fun, it's fancy, it's adventurous, but that sounds like a lot of effort. So unfortunately, things that take a lot of effort, we usually can't continue to do because our lives just don't allow us to, right? So in order to live on the complex side of the spectrum, usually you need a personal chef or a meal prep service cooking for you or prepping for you, which most people can't do, right? To be on that super complex side. So here's the issue, right? Most of us live in extremes when it comes to our weight loss. That's kind of what we've done. We've either been 100% on or 100% off, right? We're either like salads and cardio or Ben and Jerry's and Netflix, right? So that means we kind of take that same spectrum or same approach to the spectrum when it comes to food. We either go super simple and boring or we go super fancy and unsustainable, right? So you can kind of find out where you are on that spectrum. Now, what we forget is that we are on a spectrum, which means we can change it and we can move our position wherever we want based on what life is throwing at us right now. So you have to ask yourself, what phase of life am I in right now? And where do I have to move my dial? Do I have, am I really busy? Am I rushing around? Do I have to take the kids everywhere? Do I not have time to cook? Do I have appointments all the time? Then you need to say, okay, maybe I do need to shift my dial towards the easy side a little bit and accept that it will be simple, which is what I need right now, but it also might be boring for a little bit. And on the flip side, are you in a phase of your life right now where you can maybe slow down a little bit? Maybe you got a vacation coming up. Maybe, the kids aren't at the house. And can I invest more time and energy into experimenting and getting fancy with my food? Maybe I can move the dial to that side a little bit. But we forget that you have control over that dial, ladies. It is not you get placed on the spectrum and you stay there your entire journey, because life will throw you on the spectrum. And you know where you are right now. Think about, where am I landing there? That's where you are. You do not have to stay there. We get really obsessed with being perfect and strict and I can't mess up. But it's human nature. We do mess up. And you're going to be a lot less likely to mess up if you realize that that spectrum is fluid. So you're on it right now somewhere, but you can choose to move it. And you have to realize that you do need to move it consistently. That is why people always say, why is this not working for me anymore? It worked to me in the beginning, why is it not working for me now? It's because you didn't move the spectrum in terms of food with what life was throwing at you. Sometimes you have to be boring and simple. Sometimes you have to be super extravagant, just depending on where you are mentally and where you are just with the routine you have in life right now. So recognize that you do have to shift that. And when we choose where we put ourselves right now on the spectrum, it becomes, there's less pressure and there's less resistance. There's less resistance because our minds like to resist. Our minds like to make things bigger than they are, right? When we're bored of our food, we start freaking ourselves out. We start panicking. We start getting anxiety. We start, like I said, hyper-focusing on other foods. And we don't need to do that. If you're choosing to be quote unquote boring right now, you can accept that it's going to be a little less exciting for a little bit because you chose that. And that's what is going to benefit your life right now because your life is too busy for anything else. If we look at it from that perspective, it becomes a lot easier to accept how you are eating and what you have to eat right now. Because everybody tries a meal plan or a nutrition plan or cuts things out of their diet and they feel like they have to put life on hold while they do this thing. But if you do this thing properly, you should be able to continue to do the thing after you've reached your goal. It's not, let me rush to my goal, let me put my life on hold, and then let me live my old life once I'm there. Let me go back to what I was doing, right? That's always, and what you did before was let life throw you on the spectrum, right? And you were always one step behind, overwhelmed, never strategically choosing where you need to be. Strategically choosing the style of eating and prepping and food types that would work best now. Because there's nothing that works best forever, right? And we forget that, but we expect that when it comes to our journey. We're like, this worked before, now it's not working. Oh my God, something's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong. That's very, very normal. And sometimes we just need to be reminded of that, okay? Because boring is only bad if it's permanent. Boring is not bad if it is temporary, right? You can do it for a week. You can do it for a month if you know that you got to buckle down and life's going to be crazy and that's the only way you're going to be able to eat healthy. Boring becomes a prison when we think it is permanent. That is what is dangerous. So if you've been feeling that, like you're in a slump with your food, or you're unsatisfied, or you are bored, these feelings are intensifying because you think that this is the only way to reach your goal. You think that you don't see an end in sight to the boringness, right? It's either be boring or be crazy and go off. And if you go off, you don't see any results. So we have to be boring to see results. That's kind of our mentality that we succumb to, right? But that's not the case. We can be fancy. It's only going to be temporary, right? Because we also get overwhelmed with the fancy side of things, right? Like there's 7 days in a week. Let's say we have 3 meals a day. That's 21 meals. So you're telling me you're going to make 21 different recipes every week for the rest of your life? Probably not. That's exciting for a week. That's exciting for 2 weeks, right? When you get on this burst of motivation or you have a little extra time, but that fades. Just like being boring is going to fade because you just can't keep up with that. You start playing mental tricks on yourself and not liking it. And you'll talk yourself out of the fancy when you do the fancy because you're like, this is too much work. So over here's too much work. Over here, you're dying mentally. And we're like, oh my God, there's no perfect in between. But there is an in between. But first, before we talk about that in between, first you need to realize, where are you on the spectrum right now? Where do you have to move on the spectrum given your current life circumstances and your phase you're in? Which side do we need to lean on? Okay. Do we need to get a little bit more boring or do we need to get a little more fancy? Where are you? And then how can we do that? Okay. How can we do that and accept that? How do we accept that I'm choosing this style of eating right now? And put an end date on it. Put an end date on it so it's temporary and we can do it. Okay, there's no way we can do something long-term if we think that there's no end to it, if we think that it's permanent. So that's the first mindset shift that we need to be recognizing if we want to stay away from feeling that intense boredom or feeling frustration with our food, because it is a big part of our day. Like, how many times do you think about food in the day? Whether we're wondering what to eat, or we're excited to eat, or we wonder how much to eat, when I should eat, how much of it should I eat? I shouldn't have eaten that. Oh my God, I wish I could have this. It's insane. It is insane the amount of space food takes up in your mind. It's actually really disturbing, right? It's really because we're animals, and all we're programmed to do is, oh my God, where's my next meal, or I'm gonna die. But we've evolved, we're not that anymore, but we have that instinct. So we are fighting it. But think about how much more you could create and accomplish and achieve if you freed up all that mental space in your head. And one of the first steps in freeing up that mental space is choosing your place on the spectrum and accepting it and putting an end date on it so you can follow through, and then adjust the spectrum next, and then adjust the spectrum again. And it's exciting. We get to adjust. We're not stuck. We're not stagnant. This is not, we're not doing something permanent forever, because life changes, you change, and your goals change, right? Now, most of the time, what we want to be doing is, of course, finding that middle balance, right? Where in the middle of that spectrum can we kind of rest and just fluctuate a little bit, not extreme? Where can we do that, right? So something that's simple and sustainable, but also exciting and not boring, right? We want both, the best of both worlds. So the thing that actually helped me achieve this the most, so that helped me get right in the middle of that spectrum and be able to stay there pretty comfortably, was when I realized that sameness is boring, similarity is not. Same is boring, similar is not. So chicken, broccoli, and rice for Monday, and then chicken, broccoli, and rice for Tuesday, and then chicken, broccoli, and rice for Wednesday. That is boring. You're gonna bang your head against the wall real quick. But what if we just, instead of doing same, we did similar? So jerk chicken breast on Monday, curry chicken breast on Tuesday, Mexican chicken breast on Wednesday, chicken parmesan on Thursday. That's similar, but there's still some excitement. And so this is a thought that I would really encourage you to take with you into how you view your meal prepping and you view your eating style, okay? If you put zero effort into it, it will look the same. And you will get bored, and then you will blow up and binge and overeat. Not the good stuff. If you put a ton of energy into it, you will peter out. You will fade out very quickly because it's just too much. If we put a little bit of effort into it, we can make the same food similar and add a little bit of spice. No pun intended. And so that's kind of where our minds need to be. And if we do this, okay, if we focus on, say, how can I keep this similar? Not the same. Well, how can I take it just one step to being similar, not the same, but not all the way to it's completely different? If we do this, then shopping becomes easier because we don't have a huge shopping cart of a million different things, worrying about what's going to be eaten when, and I don't want this to go bad, and that's already going bad. That's a pain in the butt, right? It's also going to be easier to prep things because you don't have a million different things to flavor or learn how to cook, or different million pots. We can all do the same thing, right? So this makes your life easier. And if we do this about 80% of the time, meaning 80% of our meals are similar, not the same, it tricks us mentally in being okay with, not having super complicated meals, super Gordon Ramsay level meals all the time, because that's not realistic. So 80% of the time, we keep our food similar. That's going to make your life easier. That's going to save you time. Okay? It is a great hack. It is something that I use all the time. If I, choosing a protein or a couple proteins for the week, I just season them different. If I'm choosing veggies for the week, maybe I'll boil broccoli, maybe I'll roast it, maybe I'll air fry it, maybe I'll, there's just like different seasonings, different cooking methods. It makes the same food similar, not same. So it's going to really slow down that boring process. Okay? And if we do that 80% of the time, what we'll be able to do is realize there's room for the excitement to pop in and the newness to pop in when we're feeling that itch, right? We've all gotten the itch and we're like, this isn't good, or this isn't, this isn't good enough. I need something new. I'm craving this. We get the itch, right? What we want to recognize that itch when it's an itch, not a full-blown rash, okay? Because then it's too late. Then it is too late. So we need to recognize this itch when it's starting. And you will be able to do that because the onset of this itch, I can't believe I called it an itch. How funny is that? The onset of this itch happens much more slowly because you're now not, stuck in this bored sameness cycle. It's similar. So the itch onset is slower. So you can recognize when you're like, oh, I think I need to change things up. And you can act before you react, because it is the reactions we make to those non-boring foods that really throw us off. And if we can preemptively strike and act on that itch, you now are going to have much more control. So 80% of the time, we keep the food similar. And then that other 20% we reserve for when we feel the itch. And we're like, I want to go out to dinner. I want to order food in. I want a date night. I want to try a brand new recipe, right? I got some fresh new stuff at the grocery store or the farmer's market I want to play with, right? And that's where the creative, exciting part of cooking and food can come in. But it is unrealistic to think that you can maintain that all the time. And it's also unrealistic to think that you can maintain the boring food all the time, right? Both of those will lead you to being unhappy and unsatisfied. And if we are unsatisfied, we react. We react very quickly, and not in a way that you'd like, and probably in a way that really frustrates you, where we overindulge, where we don't know how to have moderation, where we can't just have one bite. We have to eat the whole bag, right? And we repeat these patterns so often that we think we're helpless to them. And then we start to tell ourselves, oh, I can't even have one bite. I'm just the type of woman that can't even have one bite, right? I just got to avoid it. But that's another form of an extreme, right? That's another form of an extreme. And extremes we know are not healthy. And if you want to lose weight, you got to get healthy, right? It's hand in hand, one with the other. And so if you want to be healthy, that means we have to have balance in all of our thoughts, our patterns, and our practices. And it starts with looking at food differently. Don't expect it to be this 5-star meal every time. But also don't expect weight loss to automatically mean bland and boring food. You're either putting zero effort in or too much effort in. And both of those will lead you to the same place. So focus about 80% of the time on similar, not same. And then when we do that, we can feel that itch sooner, and then we can act and go more fancy, less boring in your eyes. So I want you to take that concept, ladies. I want you to really think with it, because every single woman listening to me talk right now will have this issue pop up. If it hasn't already, it's only a matter of when. And it's just psychologically how we're connecting with food. It's our relationship with food. We're always living in the future. I can't wait till I finish this and get a cheat meal. I can't wait till, the weekend to party. But if we're always waiting for a different food, or we're always fantasizing future food, you'll never enjoy the process of learning to cook, of learning to shop, of learning to do all this stuff. And you'll never enjoy the meals you're currently eating that are healthy, right? And it's important that we actually enjoy healthy food. We don't just shove it down our throats because we think it's going to get us to a goal, right? If that's what we do, what are the chances of you being able to maintain your goal if you had to choke food down to do it? Not very high, right? Or if you had a relationship with food along your journey that was very restrictive, or that was very plain, or that was too complicated, right? It goes back to what's sustainable long term. And I just want to give you this kind of tidbit of information so you are more prepared to deal with psychologically how you are responding to what you're eating. So I want you to take a look and ask yourself, what have I been feeling about food lately? Am I enjoying it? Awesome. Am I not? Fix it. Choose your place on the spectrum, accept it, and then pay attention for when that little itch creeps in, and you will be fine, and you will beat that bland, boring food. And it will feel so good, because mentally you'll be free. Mentally, you won't always be hating what you're doing or wanting to do something else or regretting what you did. Enough with that. When do we finally get to enjoy what we're doing now? When? Or when do we stop having to think and focus on food so much? When? It starts now. So take these kind of little perspective shifts, throw them into your routine, and watch your relationship with food change. Watch how you can just let it go. Watch how you can have one bite and not go crazy. Watch how you don't obsess. Watch how you don't pick or late night snack or have intense cravings, because you're listening to your body. But to listen to your body, you have to keep it pretty consistent and stable for a while in order to get the cues right. So that's why we have to be similar. And then it will tell you when you can't handle that anymore and it's time to go spice it up. But you can't prematurely spice it up. You can't prolong the boring. We can't stay in these phases when they're no longer serving us. That's what we're forgetting. They served us when we started, or they served us last month, or whatever. We're not paying attention to where we are now. So please stop trying to place yourself on the spectrum where you were before. Place yourself on the spectrum where you are right now. Big difference.